Who knew continuing on a series I would just find so good, because I'm going back into a world I really enjoyed. I would know that if I continued them more, but yeah, I think... Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and we're at the start of a new weekly reading vlog, and this week we must read The Lies Not by M.A. Carrick. This is the second book in the Rook and the Rose trilogy. I reread the first book, Mask of Mirrors, last month, and that was the highlight of the month for me. I adored it. I cannot wait to read this second book and then finally read the third book next month. I'm so excited for this. I have technically actually started this because yesterday I was meeting my partner and I was half hour early, and so I decided to sit in a coffee shop, have a drink and read a bit of this, and I got to page 13. What is very helpful about this book is, first of all, you've got a list of characters. Because there's a lot of characters, it's all around houses, it's complicated in its political structure, but I can find that I follow it quite easily, but it is helpful having the list of characters. We also have a recap of the first book, which is always needed. There is so much going on in that first book that the recap is very helpful, because it just recaps all of the main events that happened in that first book. So we are following Ren, and Ren is a street thief. She's a con artist, and she's decided that she's going to worm her way into an elite society family, con her way in so that she gets accepted and puts on a charter for the house register so that she's a part of their house, and then can start having some of their income to provide for her and her sister. This all seems pretty straightforward until it's not, until we have so much else going on. We have a plot line of children going missing, come back unable to sleep, there's nightmare magic going on, you have tarot magic going on, you have political subtleties and curses that are going on between the main houses of the elite society, and Ren gets caught up in it all because the children that are going missing and stuff, that was her when she was growing up, so she feels like, you know, she wants to help and be a part of this. The elite society, because of the con that she's pulling off, she gets dragged into all of that. You have different characters, you've got vigilante characters, you've got so much. So the recap is really helpful because it just goes over all of that. We've also had a prologue which gives us a little bit of background into one of the characters that we meet in the first book, and it's a character that I really like. He is definitely a morally grey character and I'm so intrigued by him. Obviously I'm not going to go into details because this is a series. I am very intrigued by him, really curious to see where his story is going to go, and I was always intrigued to see how he went from being a street rat himself to being a man of very powerful and influential position, and so that prologue gives you a little bit of an insight as to where he started. It's going to go from there. I don't know what to expect, to be honest, with this book. I have no idea. It is a long book. It is 600 pages. Yes. Yeah, 634. No, that's acknowledgements. 629 pages. It's small writing as well. So this is going to take a little while, but I'm very excited and I really want to read it. So this is the book that I want to focus on. I haven't been reading loads and loads. I've been taking my time with reading and I am loving it. So we're going to see how much I actually get read. As of today, I am off today, but I've got loads of things that I need to edit. I've got a couple videos to film, so I don't know how much reading I'm actually going to get done. I would like to make good progress on this, but we'll see. Tomorrow, I've got a day with my brother. We're doing bowling and bits. So again, I don't know how much I'm going to get read. And then I'm back to work Wednesday, so we'll see. We're going to see how much we actually get done and read. I would love to finish this. I will definitely be taking it to work with me. I may pair something a little bit lighter to go along with this. We'll see. We're going to see how it all turns out. But so far, I'm loving it, and even that little bit that I was reading yesterday, just the first 13 pages, was so good. Like, I could immediately see myself falling back into this world. Obviously I won't be going into plot for the second book, but there is a lot that I can talk about this book without going into spoiler territory, so we'll definitely be touching upon that later, and depending on how well I read this, we may end up reading a different book. There's a few things that are happening. So we've got a book that's coming out tomorrow that's being released, which I'm very excited to get, which is A Curse for True Love. So I definitely want to get that, and I would love to read it straight away, but I'm thinking that's going to be the first week of November. But there's also a book that I would really like to read in the month of October that I haven't started, and that's A House of Hunger. I really want to read this by Alexis Henderson. I was actually planning to read this last week alongside the book that I read last week, and then I fell in love with that book so much that I didn't read anything extra, but that was the plan. I was going to be reading this one alongside it, so I'd really like to squeeze this in before the end of the month as well. Ideally, I would like to do this. That is my plan. What I might do is read a little bit, then read this, and then maybe continue this into next month if need be, because I plan on reading the third bit then. I don't know, to be quite honest, because when I was reading the first 13 pages of this, I could just feel myself falling into it and knowing I'm going to love this. So I may not want to put it down, but I do really want to read this. So we're going to see what happens. I feel like this one's going to be an easier read because the writing, the font style is a lot bigger and it's nowhere near as long. I think this one's only like 300 pages. It's 288 pages, so it's not even 300 pages. So maybe we'll do both. Maybe we'll make this my book before work, and then for the next 2 days, and then when I'm at work, we'll focus on this, and then that should get me through half of it. Maybe we'll do that. That sounds like a really good idea, because I'm not quite ready to say goodbye to October, because technically time of me filming this is only the 23rd of October, but because of the way my video schedules are, kind of over October by the time this comes out, but I'm not quite ready to say goodbye to it yet, so I might read this. Maybe we'll do that. Anyway, right, let's stop talking. I actually have loads I need to do today, so I need to get on and do that, and I will catch up with you in a couple days. I have made quite good progress with The Liar's Knot. So let's talk about this first, and then we'll talk about the fact that I've got some bookmail to open and a rather disappointing book shopping day yesterday. But we'll get into that. The Liar's Knot. I'm now up to page 164, chapter 7, and I'm really enjoying this. The chapters are a little bit long, but they're broken up really nicely by this, which is the same as the first book, where that little mark shows a change in perspective, because we do follow a few different people's perspective in this book. It does also sometimes show a time jump as well. That's one thing that I'm not loving about this. I think that's a bit too harsh. There's one thing that I can say is one critique that I have for this book, and it was the same in the first book, where sometimes a scene would happen and then we would kind of jump a little bit and not see a resolution of that. Now, the only one I can really think of is one in the first book, and now it's happened in here. We have our vigilante that's broken into one of our main characters' rooms. We know that the main character whose rooms were broken into knows about this because of a certain thing that he has that allows him to know this sort of knowledge. Even though he wasn't there for it, he knows what's happened. Also, to be fair, the vigilante did then leave evidence, but even if he hadn't, he would have known. We see it all happen in like the scene, but we don't see the after effects, and I think it would have been really good to have, I mean, these little perspectives normally are just like a page or two, sometimes 3, but that's about it. It would have been really nice to have like just a page or 2 of this person's perspective whose rooms got broken into, of them finding out about that, seeing the result of it, because it doesn't really get acknowledged until just now, which is fine, but I feel like this is a sort of character where their response to this would have been really interesting, and I would have really liked to have seen that, but we didn't get it, which is a bit of a shame. But that's like the only thing that I can say is something that I'm not enjoying. And even then, like I say, it's not that I'm not enjoying it, it's just like a tiny little critique where I would have loved to see that scene. But at the same time, it's already a rather long book, so it could be one of those things that the editors decided to go, no, we need to cut that scene out because of how long the book is. But I just think it would have been good, and it's only like I say, a page or two would have been nice to have in it. Also, we know the character that well that we kind of know what their response would have been, and do you need it if you know the characters that well? I mean, I still would have liked it, but there we go. I'm actually reading this on Kindle though. I am loving reading on my Kindle. I was really feeling like I wanted to read on my Kindle. It's been a few weeks since I've actually read on my Kindle. I was missing it. I really was. And this book, The Lies Not, was only $2.99 for the Kindle edition, so I decided to pick it up. One, because the font in this really is very tiny, but also it's just so much more convenient to take around a Kindle rather than this big book. It's not something I will do all the time. I know that if I want to annotate a book, things like that, I'm not going to read it on Kindle unless, of course, I got the Kindle version first and then I'm like, oh my god, I love this book, so now I want to get a physical copy. With this book, I could definitely annotate The Lies Not because I am enjoying it, but I'm also like not bothered about it. Like fantasy books, there's only a few of them that I would actually annotate, whereas generally speaking with fantasy books, I just enjoy the storytelling, I enjoy immersing myself in the world and that, and while there are, yes, quotes and things that I do like, not every fantasy book I feel the need to annotate, and to be honest, it's very few and far between. There's only a couple where I'm like, oh, I want to reread it just to annotate it, but I think that's a very particular type of fantasy. Regardless, I decided to read it on Kindle, and I have loved this because it's so much easier and more convenient to bring around. I do want to read, like I am going to do the plan that I said of reading The Lies Not on my lunch breaks at work, and so it's so much easier just to bring this around rather than lugging this in my bag alongside everything else I need to bring for work. I just decided to do it. I thought, you know what, why not? It's only $2.99 and I have loved it. The font size is just bigger on this because obviously you can adjust it to how you want, and I just find it so much more easy to read. I don't know, past me would never have touched one of these things, but I really am enjoying it. It's just so handy. I really like having it. I don't know, I just like it. It's working for me. So I'm actually reading this on Kindle, but I am tracking my progress in the physical book, and I still want to keep the physical books of these. Like, it's not a case of like, oh, I would only read the Kindle version now. Like, I want these for my shelves. I love this series. I'm really enjoying this book. Even reading it, although it's a series and it's a new book, I feel like it's a reread. It's got that comforting aspect to me that I know these characters, I know this world, and I'm just seeing what they're up to, and I really enjoy that. And that's something that I've forgotten about series that I do like, is continuing on knowing your characters. So like when you go into a new book, obviously you don't know your characters, you're getting to know all of them. I always find a reread really comforting because I know the characters, because I know what's going to happen, and I really like them, and I'm rereading it because I've enjoyed it. Continuing a series is actually working for me in that light as well. Who knew I would like to actually continue a series? Like, honestly, you wouldn't have thought it with how I've been this year, because I have started stacks of books, stacks of series, and my continuation of them has been pretty poor. But this it's just reminding me, you know what, I love a reread, but I also love continuing on a series, even if it is a new book, and it's like new book to me. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm loving it. I'm finding it really cozy and comforting, and I'm really pleased that I've added to that comfort by picking it up on Kindle, finding this really easy, and this is just so much easier for me to take out and about. Monday, I went over to my partner's in the evening and I just brought the Kindle, and I had like a 10-minute train journey, so I just whipped it out, read for 10 minutes and put it away. And for some reason I find that so much easier to do with a Kindle than a physical book. I don't know why. It's probably just a me thing and it's not actually the case, but it does mean that the bag I need to bring is a lot smaller because I don't need to try and fit this chunky book in. Like, it's just convenient, I think. And yesterday evening I was feeling really tired, but I needed to stay up late because I'm on a late shift today, and I knew if I read the physical book I was going to fall asleep, mainly because, you know, the font sizing is so small in this, but reading the Kindle version was a lot easier to read, and I found it easier to stay awake to read it. Don't know if any of that makes sense, or some of you that use Kindles, I mean, you've mentioned in the comments before how you love them because it's so much easier, and there's me just discovering that. But anyway, yes, loving this book. There are so many things that I want to talk about in this book, and I got on a Kindle tangent, but I love the world and the way it's done. Like, if you want a book that's got LGBTQ plus representation in this book, yeah, read this series. It's got it all in there. I love the way that the society is done. So it's very common in this society for gender to be fluid. There is lots of different types of relationships, from same-sex relationships to, I think there's one or two that have been mentioned, not in our main characters, but like side characters where it's a bit more polyamorous. It's so inclusive and everyone's just themselves and nobody judges you for that. And so that's what I love. They judge you for other things, like, you know, being part of society and, oh, you're not part of this family and stuff, but they don't care how you identify yourselves or what relationship you have. I really like that. I know a lot of people wish that we had more of that in the fantasy world, and I think this series does it really well, especially because it's just accepted. It's a normal part of everything. It's not being like, oh, we've got a token bisexual person. No, it's everyone, and some people are heterosexual and some people aren't, and nobody bats an eyelid at this. I really like it. I really enjoy it. And obviously the setting and everything is really good. I love that. I don't know if I've spoken about it, but we're going to move on anyway, because I've spoken about this already. We are 10 minutes in and we've got quite a bit of the book to get through. So other things that I want to mention, I can mention in next updates, because I am planning to pick up House of Hunger today before work. We know that I was planning to do this anyway. This is a book where we have a main character who decides to become a blood maid for the elite society. I'm intrigued by it. We're going to see how it goes, but I have officially decided, yes, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read The Lies Not, take my Kindle to work, read that on my lunch breaks, and read this one at home. Once this is finished, I'll then just go back to The Lies Not, and we'll just focus on that this week. As I said, we have some book mail, which was really nice. Yesterday, I wanted to go on a mission, so I went bowling with my brother, which was lovely, and I was going on a mission to get A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Gabbard, which is her newest release, and it came out yesterday, except that nowhere in my local town has it. I went to Waterstones, I went to W.H. Smith's, which is another like stationary bookshop post office thing. They didn't have it at all. So then I started checking to see click and collect stores for Waterstones, like if any of them had them. None of them had it available for click and collect. I checked Foyles because my partner was up in central London anyway, and he was like, well, check Foyles because if it's there I'll go collect it. They didn't have it. He then went to Forbidden Planet just to see if they had a copy. They also didn't have a copy. Like, I don't know what's happened, but nowhere has this book, and I don't get why. Like, the local Waterstone said that we're waiting on the delivery, we just haven't had the delivery yet. And it's just so disappointing because no, I wasn't planning on reading it yet. But I really wanted to get it, and I really wanted to just get that first moment, because in all honesty, I could have just swapped it round and read A Curse for True Love today and read A House of Hunger next week. Like, it was still up in arms about which one I wanted to read first. It's now A House of Hunger first because I don't have A Curse for True Love, and I'm so disappointed. So I was feeling a bit like bummed. I had a nice day in general with my brother, like it was good fun going bowling and the arcade and stuff, but I was still feeling a bit like, oh, I really wanted it. And then I came home to book mail, which, yes, I'm very excited for this. I didn't order anything, so let's have a little look. Okay, seems there are 2 books in here. Let's find the note. Always like doing the notes first. Oh, Suzanne! Oh my gosh, thank you so much! Oh, this is so lovely. Okay, the synopsis sounds very interesting, and I like the colour blue. Ooh, I wonder what that is. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. And then we have your video on the moving finger brought back my interest in Agatha Christie, so I thought a Miss Marple book might be a good gift. Oh, that is so lovely. Oh my god, thank you so much. I'm so glad that I could like help bring back the influence. Agatha Christie is amazing. Obviously, she's a massive author. There's a reason why her books have been around for ages, and I think she was like published like the most books. She's amazing. I love her mysteries, and I'm so pleased that I was able to reignite that interest. Oh, thank you so much. Let's have a look at these books. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Okay, we have a hardback. Ooh, yes. This is Tiapello Blue, and this is by James Cahill, and I was so tempted to get this book when it first came out because yes, look at that. That is stunning. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And yes, this is a very blue book. Absolutely gorgeous. And then I thought to myself, you know what? No, I can't just buy a book because it's pretty. I will wait till the paperback comes out. And then the paperback comes out, and I did not like that cover. And I know I know it's not about the cover, but it kind of is in a way. So thank you so much for this one. Oh my gosh. So this one is Cambridge 1994, which I would have been 1 at that time. But we have Professor Don Lamb is a revered art historian at the height of his powers, consumed by the book he is writing about the skies of Venetian master Tiepolo. However, his academic brilliance belies a deep inexperience of life and love. One day, a piece of contemporary art is installed on the lawn of his college. Don becomes obsessed with it, his anger eventually erupting in a public blunder that results in his expulsion from Cambridge. He moves to London to take up a role at a museum. There he befriends Ben, a young artist who draws him into the anarchic 90s British art scene and the nightlife of Soho. Over the course of the long hot summer of 1995, Don glimpses a liberating new experience, but his epiphany is also a moment of his reckoning, as his oldest friendship, as well as his own unexamined past, is revealed to him in a devastating new light. This sounds so good. Like, I am really excited for this. I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. I'm kind of tempted to save it for summer because of that line about it being a hot summer. So I feel like it would be good to read them, but I am so excited to read this one. I saw a few people talking about it when it first came out and I loved their reviews. I loved the sound of this. So I think it's going to be an amazing read. It has the potential to be one that I really become quickly enamoured by. So thank you so much, Suzanne. That is so lovely of you. Oh my gosh, thank you. And then the Miss Marple book. Ooh, lovely. They do it with mirrors, and this is by, obviously, Agatha Christie, and this is continuing on all the books that I want to read in the Miss Marple series, and this was the next one that I needed, so I'm very excited for this one. This is obviously another murder mystery book. We have a shocking crime, a mansion filled with suspects, and I don't like reading anything more than just the tagline for it because they're only short and I love trying to solve these. I have so much fun with them, so thank you so much. I'm very excited, and I do love these editions. Like, these are so cool. I love the way they've done this. Thank you so much for these. I am so happy and so grateful, and honestly kind of makes me feel a little bit better about not being able to get a Curse for True Love, because this is absolutely lovely, and I'm always in shock whenever anyone like says something really nice in the comments, or just in shock with how many of you actually want to watch these videos, and even more just like the fact that some of you want to gift me books. Like, oh my gosh, it is so lovely. I'm gonna keep waffling about it, but it's thank you so much. It means a lot, and yeah, thank you. But right, okay, I have been talking for almost 20 minutes. We should get on with doing other things, get myself ready for work, and start House of Hunger. So let's get on and do all of that, and yeah, thank you again, Suzanne, so much. I really appreciate that. We've managed quite a good bit of reading, so let's get straight into this. The Liar's Knot. I'm loving this book. I am now on page 304, so we are pretty much halfway through, and like I say, I am loving this book. I did mention in the last update that there was a few things that I wanted to talk about, so let's get into that. None of it is going to be spoilers, it's more just talking about the actual world. I feel like I've never done like in depth with that. I've always done like a brief one sentence overview. So it is Venetian inspired. I love that. I love that as the setting with all the canals and everything. I think that's absolutely beautiful. We do have a split within the society. So we have the nobles and elite society on one side. Preface this with the fact that I'm going to butcher pronunciations. I do apologise. It's not just fantasy books, it's words in general that I've never had to say out loud before. I then don't know how to pronounce. Story time. But when I was working in the independent opticians, we had a brand in there that was Versace. I've never had to say that word in my life before, and the way it was written, or is written, is Versace, or at least that's how I always saw it, because like I see the words and I'm like, okay, I need to pronounce the letters. Did not know it was French. I think it's French. You can tell I didn't work there for long. Obviously it's Versace, and my co-worker burst out laughing when I was like, where's the Versace cases? And they're like, the what cases? Like, what are you talking about? And then I pointed to it and they're like, Versace? I was like, ah. I've never had to say that word before. So it's like that a lot with books and stuff. If I read a word that I've never had to say before, 9 times out of 10 I'm going to mispronounce it, so apologies for that. But we have the Liganti. They're the elite of society. They're the cream of the crop as far as they're concerned. Then we have the Varisians, and they are seen as lower and lesser than. You have a lot of comments on society with that, to be honest. I think there's a lot that you could pull from that. The way that the Varisians were treated, the way that their faith belief system is ridiculed. I mean, it's horrible, but I think there's a lot of comments on society that we could make with that. I also find it really interesting how with the two different societies, how they view family, and I think that's really interesting. I really like the way that's explored in this, and Ren, our main character, really feels that, especially because she is half Varisian, and so as a result not fully accepted there, but she's not Liganti enough to be accepted in their society. That's why she has to wear all of these different masks and things. So I think there's a lot that you can comment on about the society of this. Also, the magic system is actually kind of threefold. The one I talked about the most is the tarot magic system. It's actually called pattern in here, but it is basically tarot cards, and that's really well explored. I really enjoy that. Ren uses one of her personalities to be a Varisian woman who is a patterner, so who tells futures, possible futures, or looking into the past of people through the use of pattern, and I really like that. We then have Numenatra, again, wording, take it with a grain of salt. That is a lot more kind of scientific based in a way, and that's kind of what I want to say Legantium used more, something that they use a lot to do mundane things, so to heat water, little things, but it can also do a lot bigger things, and it's all through symbols that are drawn, the energy that is used, and how bigger things require people to give their lives to power the different Numenatras. And it's always been seen as pattern and Numenatra are two very separate things. Generally speaking, a lot of people look down on pattern, seeing it as people that are just charlatans. It's not an actual real thing. Again, it's kind of spat upon because it's Varisian people. We're now seeing that actually maybe there is a correlation between the two. Maybe they can actually work off one another, and so that's really interesting. But we don't know as much about Numenatra because Ren has no idea about it, and we do follow a couple of people that are able to use it, but it's not really expanded upon as much, so it's a bit more shrouded. We then have the ability to imbue things, and now this was talked about a lot more in the first book. In the second book we haven't really had it spoken about, but it's the ability to imbue different items to do different things. So like Ren uses imbued makeup to be able to do her different facades, the different personalities that she's presenting to the world, and it's really good makeup that just doesn't wear off. Like if it was to be rubbed off and stuff, like it takes a lot more than that, so it's very good for her position that she's in. We learnt more about it in the first book because of Tess, who is a side character. She is an amazing seamstress, absolutely amazing, and she has the ability to imbue what she's doing as well. Tess is also from a different place that I have no hope of pronouncing this name, but it's Galanch, and again we learn a little bit more about their background and the way, again, they're looked down upon by the Liganti, but not quite as much as the Varisians. So it's an interesting way to see the way the society's split depending on where you come from and what your faith is. It was really interesting. I really like the different magic, the different way it's all done. It is a lot to follow, and no, I think it's done quite well. And in this book it's really interesting to see Ren and how she's actually kind of struggling because she is keeping up with 3 different personas. Ren is herself. You know, she's a street rat, she's had to fight for everything that she's ever had. And then she has Renata, who is her ego for the Liganti. She's infiltrating them into elite society, so she's got to look the part, sound the part, act the part. Then we have Arenza, who is her Varisian counterpart, and she is the patterner, and again she will change her look slightly so she looks more Varisian and slightly older, and again changing the way she talks and acts and stuff for that, although that's a side that Ren wanting to be a part of because that's her mother's side of the family. Like there's so much longing there, but also feeling like she can't ever really fit in because she's only half, and if they knew that they wouldn't be accepting of her. So there's a lot going on there. She also has a third persona which I'm not going to get into because that only emerges at the end of the first book. Again, we're just seeing her how she's really struggling to juggle all these different things and the reasons why she's got the different personas and how it lends her to get caught up in so many different politics that are going on. It's a lot, and she is really, really struggling, and this book shows it. It's really showing how the sleeplessness, been trying to juggle these 3 different things, is really catching up to her, how it's causing her to slip up at times. There's so much, and I really love it. I love that we're actually seeing that, because that was one thing that I was going to be like, if we don't see how much of a toll this has taken, then it's so unbelievable that she can balance all these different things. And the fact that it's actually being looked upon, like actually acknowledged that yes, this is ridiculous for one person to try and keep up, and look how much she's struggling, is really good. I really appreciate that. And then of course we have our different perspectives that push the narrative in different ways. I'm loving this book, I really am. There is so much to talk about because it's such a complex world, and each time I talk about it I end up talking about it for such a long time, but I think I needed to do a bit more in-depth into what the society's like, what the magic system's like, and how Ren's struggling and that, just to get a better understanding of what's going on. There is so much going on in this book, but I do think it's really well done. So yeah, absolutely loving this. Been reading that on my breaks at work and it's working really well, so be carrying on with that. Then we have House of Hunger, which actually I'm reading slightly slower than expected. I'm only on to chapter 12, page 103, and this is really good. I'm really enjoying this. We're following Marion, and Marion is someone that's grown up in the south that is honestly in terrible work conditions. Like, they work in extreme situations where they do ridiculously long days, like to the point where there was comments about how before they were allowed breaks you would have people working 24-hour shifts round the clock, and how people died from that, and that's the only reason why it changed, to make sure that they actually get break. And the conditions that they work in is dreadful, and she doesn't have money for things. She's got a terrible home life. Her parents have died. She's with her brother, but her brother's kind of gone to like losing himself in almost like an opium type thing, where he just spends his days in a stupor, and he's not there for her, and he expects her to work to get all the money, and then forcibly takes it off her to then spend on all the drugs. And it's horrible. It's a horrible work environment. And then she sees an advert to be a blood maid. Now, blood maids are for people in the north who are extremely rich, although even that is in decline. They're maids that give their blood to the people, their masters or mistresses. It's an interesting one because people in the south think it's actually worse than if you were to be a lady of the night. But Marion's like, you know what, no, sod this, I'm gonna do it. I want this life. I don't want to keep scraping things together and living in such a horrible life. I've always wanted to go to the north anyway, and this is it. This is what I want to do. And so that's what she does. Her only, I want to say friend, but she doesn't see her as a friend because she's like, that's too happy a term for it, and life is not happy. But her friend is like, no, you shouldn't do this, you're going to regret this, don't do this, but she goes anyway. And we've just seen her arrive at the House of Hunger and be accepted as a blood mage because she's got amazing taste in blood, apparently. And I like the parallels to vampires in this. They're not talked about as being vampires or being immortal, they're just talked about the fact that the mistress of the House of Hunger needs blood, health condition that she has, and so that's what they use blood for. But we have the odd line here and there where it relates back to vampiric stories, and they also have modified like some like gold caps on their teeth to be able to have them being as fangs, which I think is quite cool. And it's all about like decadence and debauchery and things like that. This is where we are. There I am tabbing. We have only 3 tabs at the minute. I have, obviously we had to do a blood red, and that's for just quotes I really like. I think there's a lot of quotes I really like in this book, especially at the start. Marion's a very strong person, and she even says like, I'm not going to apologize for fighting for what I want. And she's like, just because I'm choosing to do something for me doesn't make me a traitor. So I think I like those sort of quotes. And then doing this darker green, and that's for comments on society. There is a lot of comments on society throughout this so far, especially with the way that the people in the north look down upon the people in the south, and the way that they would rather just kind of shirk away from them rather than helping them, which they could easily do. So there's a lot of comments about that. But then I've started putting in this dark blue, and that's for things that are just sinister about the house. Things that don't add up. They're a little bit creepy. There's some things going on that it just makes it seem like everything is not the way it should be. So I'm really enjoying this. I've been reading this before work, only for a little bit before work. So like with my lunch when I'm having that, I need to do a bit of editing today, so I probably won't read as much as I would like to read. I was really hoping I'll be able to get 100 pages done a day, but it's nearing about 50. I would like to get this finished by the end of the week. I am really enjoying this. I think it's got the gothic atmosphere to it with a slightly haunted house vibe. Not fully, but it's there in the fact that it's a little bit disturbing, a little bit icky. Like there's a lot of talk about smells of mildew and rot, but you're not seeing it anywhere, so I'm really intrigued to see if that's going to go anywhere, if that's going to get expanded upon. So like there's things that make you think that this house is kind of falling into disrepair, has almost that haunted house effect. Not quite as far as other like actual haunted house books, but there's enough there to make it an unsettling atmosphere. And I really am enjoying the comments on society and the way that blood maids are used and seen, and how other people are so quick to use other people. I'm enjoying it. I think it's really good. So I'm enjoying both of these books. I think they're a good pairing because I've got the darker gothic side of things when I'm at home, and then I've just got a fantasy book that I'm really enjoying. Like I love these characters. I mean, I've already said it before, like who knew continuing on a series I would just find so good, because I'm going back into a world I really enjoyed. I would know that if I continued them more. But yeah, I think this is really good combination, really enjoying it. Oh, I forgot, well, there was one point when I was reading this on my lunch break that literally my jaw dropped, because there was something we learned at the end of the first book, and then there was a scene in here that made me go, did we have it wrong? Have we had it wrong? Are we sure we've had this wrong? And then I kind of worked out and I was like, oh, that was smart. That was really good. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really good. And no, out of context, that means absolutely nothing. But I really liked it. But okay, right, I need to stop talking. I've got a little bit of editing to do, and I want to upload a video, and then we're going to get to reading. Hoping, I would love to be able to fit about 2 hours worth of reading in. We're going to see how long the editing takes. Fingers crossed, not too long. But right, okay, let's get on with it so I can get to reading. This vlog's gone on a couple of days longer than what I thought it was going to, but I ended up being really busy over the last few days. Like, it's been a bit of a chaotic one. I obviously last updated here on Friday. I believe it was Friday. And then Saturday I wasn't planning on updating, but I was thinking to update Monday just to wrap up this vlog, and that never actually happened, obviously, as you know. But yeah, I ended up being really busy. I ended up staying over at my partner's house one night, then he came and stayed over here. I ended up hurting my neck, and it was bad enough that I ended up going home early and then calling in sick yesterday over it because it was really painful. Today's a bit better. I'm able to move a little bit more, which is good. It was so painful, and even now it's like if I turn too much one way or too fast, then it will hurt. Thankfully it's nowhere near as bad as it was. It was very sore. That's not the point. Point is, this vlog's gone on a little bit longer, but it has meant I ended up finishing both books, which I kept going on about the fact that this week I would only probably be able to get through half of this book. It went on slightly longer, so I actually managed to do all of it, which was amazing. I loved this, and there were so many twists and turns in this book. It was amazing. I loved it. There was just so much going on, and some of the characters who I thought I knew ended up being something completely different. Like they were lovely, and it was so good to get that understanding. Like, I feel like in this book there was so much character development, which I loved. Not only just with Ren and her struggling with her 3 different personalities, but also, or personas I should say, just the other characters that we get. Like, the side characters end up becoming a much bigger part in this book. A couple of them I wish had more of a step up in this book. Didn't have as much focus compared to the first book, but understandable because of the plot of this. It just really worked. I really enjoyed it, and I loved all the twists and turns that this took. Like, there were moments where I was literally just like gobsmacked. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this. This is all going on. This is really good. So I'm really excited to see how it all wraps up in the last book, but this was really good. I really enjoyed it, and it was one of those things that I just didn't want to put it down. And apart from that one scene which I mentioned at the start of the vlog that I wish we had, everything else did seem to flow really well, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, this was great, Absolutely loved it. Would highly recommend. Do you think it's better than the first book, which is always good with a second book, because sometimes you can get second book syndrome where they're not quite as good and it's just kind of like trying to progress the plot along but nothing really works. But I think because of the way the character development was done in this, it worked really well. And then I also finished House of Hunger, and I liked this one. I don't think it's going to be a new favourite, but I did really enjoy the themes that we were exploring, and some of the things that were happening towards the end of the book got really dark, and I enjoyed that. There was a point in this book where I was thinking, oh, but the mistress of the House of Hunger doesn't seem that bad. She seems like really nice and reasonable. I, kind of like it, aside from the whole blood drinking part. But maybe there's some other creepy things that are going on that's beyond her control. And yeah, then the plot twist all happened and stuff, and I was like, ooh, maybe she's not so nice. It was good though. I really enjoyed the book. The ending did feel a little bit rushed compared to the rest of the book, but otherwise I enjoyed it. And a couple people said to me that this isn't like proper vampires. I'm sorry, it kind of does feel to me like they're vampires. I know it's not like the traditional vampires, but considering that we have sparkly freaking vampires, I'm just going to go out there on a limb and say that this is just a different type of that. Especially, I can argue with the rest of the elite nobles that are going on. They may not be actual vampires. They may just be partaking in drinking blood because of that elite society shenanigans stuff. The way everything went down at the end of this book does make me question whether the mistress of the House of Hunger was definitely more vampiric leaning, especially with what happens to the girls. Can I say that she's an immortal vampire in terms of like won't die from a mortal wound? No. And she's also able to go out during the day, except if we take into account the sparkly vampires, because it's a misty place, they were able to go outside in the sunlight, and it's kind of like a similar thing. The house that they're in is constantly mist-filled. I don't think there's any point where we have a sunny day that's described out there. So it's just like these little things that I was talking to my partner and I'm like, okay, these are all the things that are happening in this book. This is what goes on with this person. What do you think that person is? And he was like straight, well, they're a kind of vampire. And it's a kind of vampire. That's my tangent. That's my little moment. But yeah, I do think it was an interesting take on vampires. Do I think they're the traditional sense of vampires? No, but I think we have branched out into so many different versions of vampires that I still think this book can come under the umbrella of being a vampire book, because they are definitely inspired by vampires heavily, and you can see that. So yeah, I really liked this though. I did really enjoy it. It still is a book that I would recommend, especially if you do want that more gothic leaning book. It just, I don't know, I feel like I was left wanting a little bit more, but I can't quite place my finger on what I wanted more of. Maybe it's just the ending part where it was a little bit too sped up. Maybe we could have spent like an extra 50 pages just exploring that a little bit more, because I think the rest of it was at a very nice, slow, sedate pace. There's nothing actually that I can put my finger on and go, this is what I didn't like about a book, because I did. I thought it was a good book. Would I reread this? Yes, I think it's really good for spooky season. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Really good. Sapphic. The atmosphere was really good. I really, really enjoyed it. Would recommend this one. Like I say, not a new favourite vampire book, but definitely one I would still recommend for this time of year. And that's it for this weekly reading vlog. I feel like we've done really well this week, and I'm really pleased that we got the 2 different books read, and I'm just, it was good. October's been an amazing reader month. I'm going to be filming my October wrap up in a few minutes, and I can't choose between all the books that I've read I would consider a favourite. Like, there's 2 really strong contenders, but there's also quite a few runner-ups that I'm like, yes, these were really good. I had such a great reader month. I hope your October reading went really well. Let me know what you got up to for Halloween. I didn't get up to anything. Normally I love to do stuff for Halloween. One, I was meant to be working a late shift. Then with being in pain, I just ended up doing nothing. But I feel like this month I've done quite a lot. So like all my reading has been the more gothic leaning side of things. I've done a ghost spooky painting, like one of those thrifted finds. I don't know if you've seen it around on TikTok, where that you get a painting from a charity shop or a thrift shop, depending on where you are in the world, add in like little ghosts and make it a little bit more like creepy scene. And I had fun doing that. That was during the 24-hour readathon that I decided to do that. And honestly, I'm thinking about doing another one of those, so you might see that coming up in a weekly vlog. And I've just enjoyed doing little things like that. So as much as I didn't do anything on the day for it, I feel like I have had a month of all of it. So it's been good. Anyway, that was a really long rambly outro bit just to say I hope you've had a great week. Let me know what you've been up to, what you've been reading, and what you did for Halloween if you celebrate it. And we're going to leave it there. So thank you so much for watching, and I think because this was the Halloween weekly vlog, Halloween was yesterday, let's just put a pumpkin in the comments below, and yeah, we'll leave it there. So thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please do give it that thumbs up, subscribe and comment. Those 3 things really help this channel grow. My social media links and anyone I've mentioned will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the very next video.